What if the secret to mastering any skill wasn't about rushing to the finish line, but embracing every step of the journey? In this audiobook, discover how shifting your mindset can transform frustration into fulfillment and help you unlock your true potential, one practice at a time. Introduction. What if I told you that everything you've been taught about success is wrong? What if the way you've been chasing mastery and growth, constantly striving for that perfect result, is the very thing holding you back? Imagine a life where your frustrations vanish, where every mistake is no longer a setback, but an opportunity to move forward. What if the secret to truly mastering anything didn't lie in rushing to the finish line, but instead in the practice itself? This is the power of a practicing mind, and what you are about to learn could change everything you thought you knew about achieving success, growth, and fulfillment. Let's get real for a moment. In today's world, we are conditioned to want everything now. With every click, swipe, and scroll, we're bombarded with the idea that if we're not achieving something instantly, we're failing. But deep down, we know this frantic pursuit of quick results is draining. We've all been there, staring at the clock, wondering why the progress seems so slow, feeling that surge of frustration when we can't master something as quickly as we want. We see others succeed effortlessly and start doubting our own potential, assuming that maybe we just don't have what it takes. But here's the truth. The race isn't about speed. It's about the process. And once you understand the secret to shifting your mindset, you'll realize that the path to mastery is a journey, not a destination. What if instead of rushing through life and pushing yourself to just get it right, you learned to embrace every moment of the journey? What if each step, no matter how small, could bring you greater joy, fulfillment, and growth? The practicing mind is the key to making that shift. It's the mindset that allows you to fully engage with the process, find peace in imperfection, and unlock your true potential. It's about understanding that mastery doesn't come from forcing results, but from consistently embracing the present moment, focusing on the process, and committing to the journey of growth every single day. By the time you finish this audiobook, you won't just have a better understanding of how to improve at a skill. You'll have completely transformed your approach to learning, personal growth, and even life itself. The magic isn't in what you achieve, but in how you approach each moment along the way. So, are you ready to stop chasing perfection and start embracing the practice? Are you ready to take control of your own growth and experience the fulfillment you've been craving? Because what you're about to learn is exactly what you've been searching for. And the best part is, it's already within you. All you need to do is shift your mindset, and everything will change. Chapter 1. Understanding the Practicing Mind. Imagine standing at the base of a mountain, looking up at the peak towering above. You feel the weight of the journey ahead, the long, winding trails, the rocky paths, the moments when your legs will burn, and doubt will whisper in your ear. You might even feel the urge to turn back before you begin, because the distance to the top seems overwhelming. But what if, instead of fixating on reaching the summit, you shifted your focus to each step beneath your feet? What if the journey itself became the goal, and each stride forward, regardless of speed or difficulty, was something to savor? This is the essence of the practicing mind, a mindset that transforms frustration into fulfillment, impatience into presence, and struggle into mastery. To understand the practicing mind, we first need to acknowledge the biggest obstacle in our way: our addiction to results. Modern life conditions us to crave instant gratification. We've become accustomed to speed, quick answers, overnight success stories, fast food, rapid deliveries, instant downloads. This constant exposure to immediacy has rewired our brains to expect progress to unfold in the same way. If we pick up an instrument, we want to play a full song in days. If we start learning a language, we expect fluency in months. If we begin a fitness journey, we want visible results within weeks. And when that doesn't happen, we grow impatient, frustrated, and ultimately, we quit. But mastery, true and lasting mastery, has never worked that way. It is slow, deliberate, and built on the foundation of repetition and patience. The practicing mind is not concerned with how quickly we reach an outcome, but with how deeply we engage in the process. At its core, the practicing mind is about presence. It is the ability to immerse yourself in the act of doing, rather than obsessing over being done. Think about the last time you felt completely absorbed in an activity. Maybe it was painting, playing music, writing, or even something as simple as organizing a space in your home. In that moment, time seemed to slow down. Your mind wasn't darting ahead to the finished product or back to past mistakes. It was resting in the movement of your hands, the rhythm of your breath, the unfolding of the experience itself. That is the practicing mind in action. But for most of us, this state is fleeting because we have been conditioned to equate value with the finished result, rather than the experience of creating it. Consider a child learning to walk. They don't berate themselves for stumbling. They don't measure their progress in steps per minute or compare themselves to other children. They simply engage in the process, falling, standing, adjusting, trying again. There is no attachment to perfection, no fear of failure. Every attempt is just another part of learning. But somewhere along the way, as we grow older, we lose this natural ability to embrace the process. We develop expectations, we fear looking incompetent, and we start seeing practice as something to be endured rather than enjoyed. The practicing mind is about reclaiming that childlike approach to growth, where each effort is valuable in itself, not just as a means to an end. One of the greatest misunderstandings about the practicing mind is the idea that it means letting go of ambition. This couldn't be further from the truth. The practicing mind doesn't diminish the importance of goals. It simply reframes them. Instead of viewing the goal as a finish line where fulfillment finally begins, we see it as a direction, a guiding star that gives our effort purpose, but doesn't overshadow the journey itself. A professional musician, for example, doesn't practice scales and drills because they are desperate to play in a concert hall. They practice because they love the music, because the act of playing itself is fulfilling. The performance may be a rewarding milestone, but it is not the sole reason for their dedication. This is the mindset shift required to develop a practicing mind, seeing every moment of effort as inherently meaningful, regardless of how close or far we are from an external goal. There's a certain paradox to this shift. When you stop obsessing over the final result and start engaging fully with the process, you actually progress faster. Think about how pressure affects performance. If you're trying to learn a new skill but constantly worrying about how quickly you'll get good at it, your mind is divided. You're not fully present in the practice itself. Part of your attention is fixated on how far you still have to go. This creates tension, which leads to frustration, which ultimately slows you down. But when you let go of that anxiety, when you allow yourself to just be in the practice without self-judgment, you enter a state of flow. And in this state, learning happens naturally. Your movements become more fluid, your mind more receptive, your progress more organic. This is why the practicing mind isn't just a philosophy, it's a practical tool for accelerating growth in any area of life. But adopting this mindset isn't as simple as flipping a switch. It requires conscious effort to unlearn years of conditioned impatience. The first step is awareness, recognizing when you are slipping into result-oriented thinking. Pay attention to your thoughts when you practice something new. Are you mentally rushing ahead, wishing you were better, resenting the learning curve? If so, gently bring your focus back to the present. Remind yourself that mastery is not an overnight event, but a lifelong process. The second step is detachment from the outcome. This doesn't mean giving up on goals, but rather not allowing them to dictate your emotions. Instead of measuring success by how close you are to the finish line, measure it by how engaged you are in the moment. Did you show up today? Did you give your best effort? If so, that is success. The third step is patience, embracing the slow, steady rhythm of progress. Understand that every great musician, athlete, writer, or artist you admire was once a beginner. They struggled, doubted, and failed just like you. The only difference is they persisted. Mastery, in the end, is not about reaching a destination. It is about becoming a person who enjoys the journey. It is about showing up day after day, not because you are desperate to be done, but because you find meaning in the doing. The practicing mind is a quiet, steady presence that guides you through frustration, impatience, and self-doubt. It teaches you that there is no such thing as wasted effort, that every step, no matter how small, is valuable. And once you internalize this, everything changes. You no longer see practice as a chore, but as a privilege. You stop dreading the process and start embracing it. You begin to find joy in the act of learning itself, and in doing so, you unlock a level of patience, focus, and fulfillment that most people never experience. So as you stand at the base of your mountain, whether it's learning an instrument, building a career, improving your fitness, or mastering a skill, ask yourself, will you spend the journey agonizing over the peak, or will you find joy in each step? The choice is yours. Chapter 2. The Pitfall of Instant Gratification. You wake up, reach for your phone, and within seconds, your brain is flooded with stimulation. A notification tells you someone liked your post. Another pings with a message. You scroll through an endless stream of content, each swipe delivering another quick hit of novelty. You tap an app, order food, and within minutes, it's on the way. You want to watch a show? A vast library of entertainment is instantly available. Everything is fast, effortless, and immediately gratifying. But beneath the surface of this convenience lies an unspoken cost, a rewired mind, conditioned to expect everything now, to resist patience, and to find discomfort in the slow, steady process of mastery. The modern world has created a paradox. We have more access to knowledge, skills, and opportunities than ever before. Yet our ability to truly learn, to deeply engage, and to endure the necessary discomfort of growth has diminished. We are drowning in a sea of shortcuts, yet starving for fulfillment. We want to play an instrument, but we don't want to endure the hours of awkward, clumsy practice it requires. We want to be in shape, but we resent the slow, incremental changes that real fitness demands. We want success in our careers, but we expect it to arrive in months, not years. And when things don't happen on our timeline, we abandon them. This is the pitfall of instant gratification, the illusion that fulfillment comes from quick results, when in reality, it is found in the slow, deliberate process of becoming. To understand why this happens, we need to examine how our brains are wired. Every time we achieve something, no matter how small, our brain releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter that creates feelings of pleasure and reward. This is a necessary mechanism for motivation, but in today's world, we are overstimulated with artificial sources of dopamine. Social media, fast entertainment, and instant conveniences provide rapid, effortless hits of pleasure, making our brains accustomed to immediate reward. As a result, when we attempt something that requires patience, learning a skill, building a habit, developing expertise, it feels frustrating in comparison. The slow, unglamorous process of practice does not provide the instant payoff we have been conditioned to expect, so we grow restless, discouraged, and tempted to give up. This is why so many people abandon their pursuits prematurely. It's not because they lack talent or ability, it's because they lack the ability to delay gratification. They have been trained to believe that progress should feel fast and easy, and when it doesn't, they assume they aren't good enough. But mastery is not about speed. It's about consistency. The greatest musicians, athletes, and creators did not succeed because they had extraordinary bursts of motivation. They succeeded because they learned to fall in love with the process, even when progress was invisible. Consider the story of a young musician who dreams of playing beautiful compositions. At first, their enthusiasm is high. They imagine themselves effortlessly playing their favorite songs, impressing an audience, feeling the music flow through them. But the reality of practice is much different. Their fingers feel clumsy. Their timing is off. The sound they produce is nothing like what they envisioned. This is the moment where most people quit, not because they are incapable, but because they are unwilling to endure the discomfort of slow progress. They have been conditioned to expect results quickly, and when they don't materialize, they assume they never will. But those who persist through this discomfort, who resist the urge to seek a shortcut, are the ones who eventually experience real fulfillment. Why? Because they understand that true satisfaction comes not from reaching a destination, but from becoming someone who is capable of the journey. The difference between those who succeed and those who give up is not talent, but tolerance for delayed gratification. To break free from the pitfall of instant gratification, we must recondition our minds. The first step is awareness. Recognize when you are being lured by the illusion of quick results. Notice how your brain reacts when progress feels slow. Do you immediately feel discouraged? Do you seek distractions? Do you tell yourself it's not worth it? These are all signs of a mind addicted to instant gratification. The key is to interrupt this cycle by shifting your focus from results to process. Instead of measuring success by how quickly you improve, measure it by how consistently you show up. The second step is to reframe discomfort as a sign of growth. When something feels difficult, our natural instinct is to avoid it. But difficulty is not a signal to quit. It is proof that you are challenging yourself. Every time you push through discomfort, you are strengthening your ability to endure. This is what separates amateurs from masters, not the absence of struggle, but the willingness to embrace it. The third step is to create an environment that supports patience. In a world designed to keep us distracted, we must be intentional about cultivating focus. Set boundaries with technology. Reduce your exposure to instant gratification triggers. Replace passive consumption with active learning. Instead of scrolling through endless content, engage in deep, meaningful practice. Instead of seeking quick entertainment, immerse yourself in something that requires effort. Over time, this rewires your brain to find satisfaction in the process itself, rather than in fleeting rewards. One of the greatest misconceptions about mastery is that it should always feel good. But the reality is, there will be moments of frustration, boredom, and self-doubt. The practicing mind does not seek to eliminate these feelings. It seeks to coexist with them. Mastery is not about avoiding struggle. It is about becoming comfortable within it. When you stop expecting learning to feel effortless, you free yourself from the frustration of slow progress. The final step is to redefine success. Instead of seeing achievement as the moment you reach your goal, see it as the process of becoming. A musician is not successful when they finally play a song perfectly. They are successful every time they sit down to practice. A writer is not successful when they publish a book. They are successful every time they put words on a page. A runner is not successful when they complete a marathon. They are successful every time they lace up their shoes and take another step. When you shift your definition of success from results to effort, you reclaim the joy of learning. The irony of instant gratification is that it never truly satisfies. The rush of quick rewards fades quickly, leaving us empty and searching for the next fix. But deep fulfillment, the kind that lasts, comes only from sustained effort. It comes from looking back, months or years later, and realizing how far you have come. It comes from knowing that you didn't quit when it was hard, that you didn't take the shortcut, that you became someone who is capable of mastery. So, the next time you feel frustrated with slow progress, remind yourself, this is not failure. This is not a sign to quit. This is proof that you are on the right path. The practicing mind is not about avoiding struggle. It is about embracing it. And when you learn to find joy in the process itself, you unlock a level of growth, patience, and fulfillment that no shortcut can ever provide. Chapter 3. Process versus Product, the Secret to Mastery. Picture yourself standing in front of a blank canvas, brush in hand, colors laid out before you. You are about to create something, a painting, a piece of art, an expression of yourself. But instead of enjoying the moment, your mind is already racing ahead. You imagine the final result, the finished painting displayed proudly on a wall, admired by others. The pressure builds. Every stroke feels like it must be perfect because the end product is all that matters. But in that moment, you are not painting. You are not immersed in the act of creation. You are fixated on being finished, and in doing so, you rob yourself of the very experience that makes the process meaningful. This is the fundamental flaw in product-oriented thinking. It blinds us to the beauty of the journey. From a young age, we are conditioned to value outcomes over effort. We are praised for high grades, not for the hours spent studying. We are rewarded for winning a competition, not for the dedication it took to prepare. Society teaches us that success is measured by results, and as a result, we internalize the idea that everything we do must lead to an impressive, tangible achievement. But the greatest paradox of mastery is this: those who obsess over the end result rarely achieve it, while those who focus on the process find themselves improving naturally. The reason for this lies in how our minds function under pressure. When we are fixated on the product, we introduce tension, anxiety, and fear of failure into our work. We judge ourselves against a future standard we have not yet reached, making every mistake feel like a personal flaw rather than a necessary step. But when we shift our attention to the process, when we engage fully in each moment without the burden of expectation, we remove that pressure and allow growth to happen organically. Consider the way a master craftsman works. Whether it is a woodworker, a sculptor, or a musician, they do not rush through their practice, desperate to reach the final product. They lose themselves in the rhythm of their craft, in the feel of the tools in their hands, in the repetition of movements that over time become effortless. The masterpiece they create is not the goal. It is merely the result of deep engagement with the process. This is the essence of mastery, the understanding that progress is not a single moment of achievement, but a continuous unfolding of skill, patience, and presence. To fully grasp the difference between process-oriented and product-oriented thinking, imagine learning to play the piano. A product-oriented mindset fixates on being able to play an entire song flawlessly. Every mistake is seen as a failure. Every imperfect note, a sign that you are not good enough. Frustration builds. Practice becomes a chore, and before long, the excitement that once drove you fades. But a process-oriented mindset sees each practice session as a success in itself. Every mistake is not a failure but an opportunity to improve. Each note, no matter how imperfect, is part of the journey. The focus shifts from how soon can I be good to how deeply can I engage right now. And with that shift, frustration gives way to patience, anxiety to enjoyment, struggle to progress. But how do we break free from the deeply ingrained habit of product-oriented thinking? The first step is to become aware of when it is happening. Pay attention to your thoughts when you are engaged in any skill or task. Are you constantly checking your progress, wondering how much longer until you improve? Are you comparing yourself to others who are further along? Are you feeling impatient because you are not as skilled as you want to be? These are all signs of a product-oriented mindset. The key is to catch these thoughts and redirect them. Instead of measuring how close you are to the end goal, ask yourself, am I fully present in what I am doing? Am I appreciating the experience itself? The second step is to redefine success. Instead of viewing success as a destination, see it as a state of being. A successful practice session is not one where you played everything perfectly. It is one where you showed up, engaged fully, and gave your best effort. A successful day at work is not one where you finished every task. It is one where you were focused, present, and committed to improvement. By shifting the definition of success from outcome to effort, you free yourself from the frustration of slow progress and find fulfillment in the act of learning itself. The third step is to detach from external validation. Much of our obsession with product stems from the desire for recognition. We want to be praised, admired, seen as talented or accomplished. But the need for validation is a distraction from real growth. True mastery comes from an internal drive, a love for the craft, a passion for the process itself. The most successful individuals in any field are not those who chase approval, but those who practice for the sake of the practice. When you release the need for external validation, you reclaim control over your learning process. You no longer rush to impress others. You slow down to develop real skill. This shift in mindset is not just about skill development. It is about life itself. The way we approach our goals reflects the way we approach our experiences. If we are always living for the next big achievement, the next milestone, the next validation, we will never feel truly satisfied. There will always be another goal, another expectation, another finish line that moves further away. But if we learn to find fulfillment in the process, whether it is in our careers, our relationships, or our personal growth, we discover that joy is not something we have to chase. It is something we cultivate in each moment. To illustrate this, imagine two runners training for a marathon. One is obsessed with the race day, counting down the weeks, pushing through each run with the sole purpose of crossing that finish line. The other finds joy in every run, appreciating the way their body moves, the rhythm of their breath, the feeling of progress unfolding with each step. When race day comes, both runners will finish, but only one will have truly enjoyed the journey. Mastery is not about reaching an endpoint. It is about becoming someone who loves the process. When you let go of the obsession with the final product, you open yourself up to deeper learning, greater patience, and a sense of fulfillment that cannot be taken away. A musician who loves to practice will always improve. A writer who loves to write will always create. A learner who loves to learn will always grow. So the next time you feel frustrated by slow progress, remind yourself, the goal is not to be done. The goal is to become. Mastery is not a trophy to be won, but a journey to be embraced. And the secret to unlocking it lies not in the future, but in the present moment, in the act of practice itself. Chapter 4. The Role of Discipline and Consistency. Discipline is often misunderstood. It is frequently associated with force, rigidity, or deprivation, a set of strict rules we must impose upon ourselves to succeed. But true discipline, the kind that fosters growth, mastery, and fulfillment, is not about punishment or willpower alone. It is about creating habits that sustain us, routines that carry us forward, even when motivation fades. It is about embracing consistency, not as a burden, but as a path to freedom. Because when we cultivate discipline, we remove uncertainty, we eliminate hesitation, and we replace fleeting bursts of inspiration with steady, unshakable progress. Think about the moments when you have struggled to stay committed to something important. Perhaps you started a new exercise routine, excited and determined, only to find yourself skipping sessions after a few weeks. Maybe you picked up a musical instrument, practicing diligently at first, but slowly playing less and less until your guitar sat untouched in a corner. Or perhaps you set a goal to write a book, paint regularly, or learn a language, only to see your enthusiasm fade as life's distractions took over. This is the common cycle of human behavior: an initial surge of motivation, followed by a gradual decline when the novelty wears off and the real work begins. It is here, in this space between inspiration and mastery, that discipline becomes the deciding factor. We admire those who seem to achieve greatness with ease, assuming they are simply more talented or more naturally driven than the rest of us. But if you look closely at any master in any field, you will find a different truth. They are not relying on motivation. They are relying on discipline. They have built a foundation of consistent habits that allow them to show up day after day, regardless of how they feel. A writer does not wait for inspiration to strike. They sit down and write, even when the words come slowly. A musician does not practice only when they are in the mood. They play every day because they know that progress is not an event, but a process. An athlete does not train only when they feel energetic. They lace up their shoes, step onto the field, and commit to the work, knowing that discipline is what transforms effort into excellence. This is the secret that separates those who succeed from those who falter. They do not rely on motivation because they understand that motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes, unpredictable and unreliable. Discipline, on the other hand, is something we can build. It is a muscle that grows stronger with use, a skill that can be cultivated like any other. And once we develop it, we no longer need to rely on bursts of inspiration to move forward. We simply do the work consistently until progress becomes inevitable. The key to cultivating discipline is to start small. Too often, we set ourselves up for failure by demanding too much, too soon. We decide to wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, commit to a strict diet, or aim for 2-hour practice sessions every day, only to find ourselves overwhelmed within a week. The problem is not that we lack discipline. It is that we are trying to build a habit that is unsustainable. The brain resists drastic change, and when we push too hard, we trigger an internal rebellion that makes consistency impossible. But when we start with small, manageable steps, we bypass this resistance. We create habits that feel effortless, that integrate smoothly into our daily lives, and that, over time, grow into something powerful. Imagine a pianist who wants to develop a consistent practice routine. Instead of committing to 2-hour sessions immediately, they begin with 10 minutes a day. Just 10 minutes. So small that there is no resistance, no excuse not to sit down and play. They do this every day until it becomes automatic, a normal part of their routine. Then, they gradually increase the time, expanding their practice naturally, without force or struggle. Within a few months, what began as a 10-minute habit has grown into a daily hour of focused, disciplined effort. And the best part? It does not feel like a burden. It feels natural because it was built gradually with patience and consistency. This approach applies to any skill, any goal, any area of life where discipline is required. Want to start exercising? Begin with 5 minutes a day. Just 5. Make it so easy that you cannot fail, and then let it grow. Want to read more? Start with a single page every night before bed. Want to improve your writing? Commit to writing 1 sentence a day. The trick is to make the habit small enough that you can do it every day without resistance. Over time, this consistency compounds, and what once felt like effort becomes second nature. Another powerful tool in developing discipline is removing unnecessary decision-making. Every time we have to decide whether or not to do something, we introduce the possibility of resistance. If you wake up every morning wondering whether you should go to the gym, you are giving yourself the chance to say no. But if you remove the decision, if you set a fixed time, prepare your workout clothes the night before, and make it a non-negotiable part of your routine, you eliminate hesitation. This is why successful people create structured habits. They do not rely on willpower alone. They design their lives in a way that makes discipline easy. Consider the story of a famous novelist who was asked how they managed to write so many books. Their answer was simple. I write 500 words every morning, no matter what. They did not wait for inspiration. They did not ask themselves if they felt like writing. They simply sat down and did the work. And because they did this every day without exception, they accumulated an enormous body of work over time. This is the power of consistency. Small efforts, repeated daily, add up to extraordinary results. But what about the days when you do not feel like showing up? This is where the true test of discipline lies. The difference between those who succeed and those who give up is not that successful people never feel resistance. It is that they have learned how to push through it. They understand that the hardest part is often just getting started, and that once they begin, momentum takes over. They do not negotiate with themselves. They do not wait for the perfect mood. They simply take the first step, knowing that action creates motivation, not the other way around. One of the greatest misconceptions about discipline is that it requires suffering. But the truth is, discipline is what creates freedom. When you are disciplined, you do not waste time wrestling with indecision, procrastination, or self-doubt. You do not rely on fleeting bursts of motivation to move forward. You simply do the work, and in doing so, you free yourself from the anxiety of inconsistency. The practicing mind is not one that struggles to stay disciplined. It is one that has made discipline a natural, effortless part of life. So, as you move forward, ask yourself, how can I make discipline easier? How can I design my habits in a way that removes resistance? How can I start so small that I cannot fail? Because the truth is, mastery is not about dramatic effort. It is about steady, unshakable consistency. And when you build discipline in a way that feels sustainable, you no longer have to force yourself to practice. You simply show up every day without hesitation. And in doing so, you move steadily, inevitably, toward mastery. Chapter 5. Patience, the key to long-term growth. Patience is one of the most underrated yet powerful forces in skill development, personal growth, and success. In a world where instant gratification is expected, patience is often mistaken for passivity, as if waiting for results is the same as doing nothing. But real patience is not about waiting idly. It is about trusting the process, committing to continuous improvement, and resisting the urge to rush toward results before we are truly ready. It is about cultivating a mindset that embraces slow, steady progress, rather than being frustrated by the pace of development. Those who master patience do not just improve their skills, they transform their entire relationship with learning, work, and life itself. Think about the last time you started something new, a new instrument, a fitness routine, a language, or even a creative project. In the beginning, the excitement fuels you. Everything is fresh and motivation is high. But as the initial novelty fades, something else takes its place: impatience. You begin to wonder why you are not progressing as quickly as you had hoped. Why does it still feel so difficult? Why does your effort not translate immediately into mastery? This is where most people struggle, not because they lack ability, but because they lack patience. They become frustrated, start questioning themselves, and either force themselves to push harder in an unsustainable way or give up entirely. But the truth is, progress always takes longer than we expect, and the ability to embrace that reality without resistance is what separates those who succeed from those who stay stuck. Impatience sabotages growth in subtle but destructive ways. When we are impatient, we shift our focus from the process to the outcome, and in doing so, we disconnect from the very thing that leads to progress, the work itself. Instead of fully engaging in practice, we rush through it, seeking shortcuts that ultimately weaken our foundation. A musician who lacks patience skips over the basics, wanting to play complex pieces before mastering fundamental techniques. An athlete who lacks patience tries to lift heavier weights before developing proper form, leading to injury instead of strength. A writer who lacks patience forces out pages without refining their craft, missing the opportunity to develop true depth in their storytelling. In every field, impatience leads to stagnation, frustration, and ultimately, failure. But those who cultivate patience experience learning in an entirely different way. Instead of seeing slow progress as a problem, they embrace it as part of the journey. Instead of rushing through skills, they take their time, understanding that mastery is not about speed. It is about depth. They trust that every small improvement, even if invisible in the moment, is building something greater over time. They do not compare their journey to others, because they understand that real success is not measured in days or weeks, but in years of dedicated practice. Patience, in this sense, is not just about enduring slowness. It is about appreciating it, because it is in that slowness that true learning happens. The most effective way to develop patience is through mindfulness, being fully present in whatever you are doing without fixating on the outcome. When you practice mindfulness, you stop seeing your efforts as a means to an end and start experiencing them as valuable in their own right. A pianist does not just play scales to improve their technique. They immerse themselves in the sound, the feel of the keys, the rhythm of the movement. A runner does not just train to build endurance. They focus on the sensation of each step, the rhythm of their breath, the way their body moves. A painter does not just work to finish a piece. They engage deeply with each brushstroke, each shade of color, each layer of texture. This shift in focus, from the end result to the present experience, is what allows patience to flourish. One of the greatest lessons in patience comes from nature. If you plant a tree, you cannot force it to grow faster by pulling on its branches. You cannot make it bloom overnight by demanding results. All you can do is provide the right conditions, sunlight, water, and time, and trust that growth is happening even when you cannot see it. The same is true for skill development. You cannot rush mastery. You cannot demand instant results. All you can do is show up consistently, do the work, and trust that progress is unfolding beneath the surface, even if it is not immediately visible. This is the mindset of every great artist, athlete, scientist, and creator. They understand that excellence is not something you achieve once and for all. It is something you build patiently over a lifetime. There is a well-known story about a famous violinist who was asked how long it took them to master their craft. Their answer was simple. I have been playing for 40 years and I am still learning. This is the essence of patience. Mastery is not a destination. It is a continuous journey. And when you embrace that journey fully without rushing, you experience something remarkable. You stop feeling impatient altogether. You no longer measure your worth by how quickly you improve. You no longer feel discouraged by slow progress. Instead, you find joy in the process itself. But patience is not just about skill development. It applies to every area of life. Relationships, for example, require patience. True connection is not built overnight. It takes time, trust, and consistent effort. If we expect instant depth in our friendships or partnerships, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Career growth also requires patience. Most people want quick success, immediate recognition, rapid promotions. But those who rise to the top are the ones who understand that real expertise is built through years of learning, refining, and persevering. Even personal growth, our ability to become better, wiser, more resilient, depends on patience. We do not change overnight. We evolve gradually through experiences, mistakes, and lessons learned along the way. So how do we cultivate patience in a world that constantly pushes us toward urgency? One of the most powerful strategies is to shift our perception of time. Instead of thinking in days or weeks, think in years. Instead of expecting immediate results, expect gradual transformation. Imagine yourself 5 years from now looking back at today. What will matter most? The speed of your progress or the depth of your growth? When you expand your sense of time, impatience fades because you realize that every step you take is part of a much larger picture. Another powerful tool is reframing frustration as a sign of progress. When you feel impatient, it is usually because you are pushing beyond your comfort zone, stretching yourself in new ways. This is not a bad thing. It is a sign that you are growing. Instead of resisting that feeling, embrace it. Recognize it as proof that you are on the right path. Remind yourself that every great achievement in history was built on patience, perseverance, and an unshakable commitment to the process. Ultimately, patience is what allows us to find fulfillment in the journey, rather than just in the destination. When we rush, we miss the beauty of learning, the joy of discovery, the satisfaction of steady progress. But when we slow down, immerse ourselves in each step, and trust that mastery unfolds in its own time, we not only become better at what we do, we become happier, more present, and more at peace with the process of growth. So as you move forward, ask yourself, am I allowing impatience to hold me back? Am I focusing too much on results and not enough on the experience of learning? How can I cultivate more patience in my daily practice? Because the truth is, the greatest breakthroughs do not come to those who rush. They come to those who persist, patiently, knowing that every step, no matter how small, is bringing them closer to excellence. Chapter 6. How to stay present in your practice. In today's world, distractions are everywhere, and our attention is constantly being pulled in multiple directions. We live in an era of overstimulation, where we are encouraged to multitask, to always be productive, and to seek efficiency over depth. But mastery does not come from doing more things at once. It comes from doing one thing with full presence. When we allow our focus to be divided, we fail to engage fully in our work, and as a result, our learning suffers. True progress requires not just effort, but undivided attention, an intentional practice of staying present, immersing ourselves fully in what we are doing, and resisting the urge to rush ahead or mentally drift elsewhere. Think about the last time you sat down to practice something: a musical instrument, a sport, a craft, or even a new skill at work. How long did it take before your mind wandered? Maybe you were thinking about what you needed to do later that day. Maybe you were checking your phone between attempts. Maybe you were going through the motions mechanically, without actually engaging in the process. This is what happens when we lack presence. Our practice becomes mindless, our progress slows, and we find ourselves feeling frustrated without knowing why. We mistake time spent for progress made, when in reality, it is not how long we practice that matters. It is how deeply we engage. Staying present in your practice means bringing your full awareness to each moment, each movement, each repetition. It means being completely absorbed in what you are doing, without worrying about how much longer it will take or how well you are performing compared to others. It is about shutting out distractions, not just external distractions like notifications and noise, but internal distractions like self-doubt, impatience, and the urge to be somewhere other than where you are. When you are fully present, practice becomes more than just training. It becomes a meditation, a state of flow where your mind and body are working in harmony, free from the weight of overthinking. One of the biggest obstacles to staying present is the modern obsession with multitasking. We have been conditioned to believe that doing multiple things at once is a sign of efficiency, but in reality, it is the opposite. Multitasking splits our attention, reduces the quality of our work, and increases stress. Studies have shown that switching between tasks decreases performance and increases mental fatigue. Yet we continue to fall into the trap of trying to juggle everything at once. The most effective learners, however, do not multitask. They practice single tasking, giving their full focus to one thing at a time, eliminating distractions, and engaging deeply in the moment. To cultivate presence in your practice, start by eliminating external distractions. Create an environment that supports focus. If you are practicing music, find a quiet space. Put your phone in another room and give yourself the gift of uninterrupted time. If you are studying a skill, close unnecessary tabs, turn off notifications, and immerse yourself fully in the material. Your environment plays a crucial role in your ability to stay present, and the fewer distractions you have, the easier it will be to engage completely. But external distractions are only part of the problem. Internal distractions are just as powerful. Our minds are constantly jumping ahead, worrying about results, comparing ourselves to others, or replaying past mistakes. This mental chatter pulls us away from the present moment, making it difficult to focus. The key to overcoming this is mindfulness, the practice of bringing your awareness back to the here and now again and again, no matter how many times your mind drifts. This is not about forcing yourself to concentrate. It is about gently training your attention, the same way you would train a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger your ability to stay present becomes. A simple but effective way to develop presence in your practice is to engage all your senses. Pay attention to what you see, hear, and feel as you work. If you are playing an instrument, notice the texture of the keys or strings beneath your fingers, the vibration of the sound, the rhythm of your breath. If you are painting, focus on the movement of the brush, the blending of colors, the sensation of the canvas. If you are training in a sport, be aware of your body, your posture, your movement, your balance. The more you engage your senses, the less room there is for distraction, and the deeper your connection to the practice becomes. Another powerful technique is setting clear intentions before each practice session. Instead of just going through the motions, take a moment to define what you want to focus on. Ask yourself, what is my goal for this session? What specific aspect of my skill do I want to refine? How will I know if I have fully engaged in the process? Having a clear intention helps anchor your mind, giving you a purpose to return to whenever distractions arise. Presence is also about learning to appreciate the small details, the tiny improvements that might otherwise go unnoticed. Progress is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is subtle. A slightly smoother movement, a more precise execution, a deeper understanding of a concept. When you train yourself to notice and appreciate these micro improvements, you become more engaged in the process, and your motivation grows. Instead of waiting for big breakthroughs, you start to find joy in the small victories, the quiet moments of refinement that lead to true mastery over time. But perhaps the most important aspect of staying present in your practice is learning to let go of judgment. One of the biggest reasons people struggle to focus is that they are constantly evaluating themselves, worrying about whether they are doing well enough, improving fast enough, or performing perfectly. This self-judgment creates unnecessary pressure, pulling attention away from the work itself and into a cycle of doubt and frustration. The best practitioners understand that practice is not about proving anything. It is about learning. Mistakes are not failures. They are part of the process. Every missed note, every flawed stroke, every imperfect attempt is a step forward, not a setback. When you let go of judgment, you free yourself to engage fully, to take risks, to experiment without fear. And in doing so, you unlock a deeper level of focus and enjoyment. Staying present in your practice is not just about improving your skills. It is about transforming your entire relationship with learning. It is about shifting from a mindset of performance to a mindset of presence, from frustration to curiosity, from impatience to engagement. When you are fully present, every moment of practice becomes meaningful. You are no longer just working toward a goal. You are experiencing the richness of the journey itself. You are no longer just trying to get better. You are fully immersed in the act of creation, discovery, and growth. So the next time you sit down to practice, take a deep breath. Slow down. Let go of distractions, both external and internal. Set an intention. Engage your senses. Notice the details. And most importantly, allow yourself to be fully here, fully engaged, fully present. Because in the end, mastery is not just about what you achieve. It is about how deeply you experience the process along the way. Chapter 7. The 4 S's. Simplify, small, short, slow. When people set out to master a skill, they often make the mistake of trying to do too much, too fast, all at once. There's a certain excitement in taking on a challenge, an eagerness to see rapid progress, a desire to push forward as quickly as possible. But in that rush, they become overwhelmed. They take on too many details at once, try to absorb too much information, and place unrealistic demands on their ability to improve overnight. As a result, frustration sets in, motivation fades, and the process that once felt exciting starts to feel burdensome. They begin to associate learning with struggle rather than discovery. The key to avoiding this self-defeating cycle lies in a simple but powerful framework. Simplify, small, short, slow. These 4 principles, what we'll call the 4 S's, form the foundation of efficient, effective, and sustainable practice. They help strip away unnecessary complexity, allowing you to focus on what truly matters. They prevent burnout by keeping your workload manageable. They accelerate your learning by ensuring that your efforts are directed with precision rather than scattered across too many areas. Most importantly, they transform the way you engage with the learning process, shifting your mindset from forceful striving to effortless mastery. When you apply these principles consistently, you will find that skill development becomes less of a struggle and more of an enjoyable, almost meditative process. Let's begin with the first principle. Simplify. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with skill acquisition is that they overcomplicate the process. They focus on too many moving parts at once, worry about every possible variable, and get bogged down by the sheer volume of things they believe they need to do. This leads to analysis paralysis, the overwhelming feeling that there is so much to focus on that you end up focusing on nothing at all. The antidote is simplification. Instead of trying to take in everything at once, identify the 1 or 2 most essential elements that will bring the greatest improvement and concentrate only on those. A concert pianist doesn't try to perfect an entire piece in one go. They break it down into sections and focus on refining one hand at a time, or even just a single measure. A golfer doesn't attempt to fix every flaw in their swing simultaneously. They isolate one aspect, such as grip or stance, and work on that before moving on. A writer struggling with writer's block doesn't try to finish an entire book in one sitting. They simplify the task by committing to just 1 sentence or paragraph. Simplification removes unnecessary noise, allowing you to direct your full attention toward the most impactful elements of your practice. The second principle, small, builds directly upon simplification. Once you have identified what matters most, the next step is to break it down into smaller, digestible chunks. Large, complex skills are nothing more than a collection of small, simple ones stacked together. If you approach a skill as a single, massive task, it will feel overwhelming. But if you divide it into smaller, more manageable components, each part becomes attainable. This is why the best learning happens in micro-steps. Rather than attempting to memorize an entire speech, focus on learning 1 sentence at a time. Instead of trying to master an entire martial arts form, focus on refining a single movement. If you're learning a new language, don't overwhelm yourself with entire conversations. Focus on mastering a handful of key phrases first. The smaller the step, the more achievable it becomes and the more momentum you build. It's important to recognize that small steps are not signs of slow progress. They are the foundation of sustained progress. When people try to take giant leaps in their learning, they often end up stumbling. They gloss over essential fundamentals, struggle with inconsistency, and ultimately find themselves backtracking. But those who focus on small, incremental improvements experience steady, lasting progress. They move forward with confidence, knowing that each small step is laying the groundwork for something greater. The third principle, short, addresses one of the most common mistakes in practice: trying to do too much in a single session. There is a misconception that the longer you practice, the better you become. While time spent practicing is important, the quality of your practice matters far more than the quantity. Many people push themselves to practice for hours at a time, believing that longer sessions will lead to faster results. But the human brain has limits on how much it can absorb effectively in one sitting. Overly long practice sessions lead to mental fatigue, diminishing returns, and a decrease in motivation over time. Instead, the most effective learners break their practice into short, focused sessions. Research has shown that attention and retention are highest when learning is done in shorter bursts, with periods of rest in between. This is why techniques like the Pomodoro method, which involves 25-minute focused sessions followed by short breaks, are so effective. A 30-minute session of high-quality, fully engaged practice is far more valuable than 2 hours of distracted, fatigued effort. Finally, we come to the fourth principle: slow. In our fast-paced world, slowness is often mistaken for weakness, but in reality, slowing down is the fastest way to improve. Rushing through practice is one of the most damaging habits a learner can develop. When you rush, you make sloppy mistakes, reinforce bad habits, and fail to internalize the finer details of what you are doing. It feels like you are making progress because you are covering more ground, but in reality, you are simply going through the motions without true absorption. The best performers in any discipline understand the value of deliberate slowness. A martial artist perfecting a new technique practices it in slow motion to ensure every movement is precise before increasing speed. A musician struggling with a difficult passage plays it at half speed to train muscle memory before attempting it at full tempo. A public speaker preparing for a major presentation rehearses slowly to fine-tune their delivery before speaking at normal speed. Slowing down allows you to identify weak points, refine your execution, and develop deeper mastery. There is a concept known as deep practice that describes how the brain learns most effectively. Studies on elite performers have shown that the brain forms stronger neural connections when a skill is practiced slowly and with full awareness. By moving slowly, you increase accuracy, reduce errors, and develop a deeper understanding of what you are doing. Over time, this leads to faster and more automatic execution. When you combine all four principles, simplify, small, short, and slow, you create an environment for mastery. You reduce overwhelm, eliminate frustration, and replace the struggle of learning with an enjoyable, mindful process. So the next time you sit down to practice, ask yourself, am I overcomplicating this? How can I simplify? Am I trying to tackle too much at once? Can I break this into smaller steps? Am I forcing myself to practice for too long? Would a shorter, more focused session be more effective? Am I rushing through this? What would happen if I slowed down and focused on precision? These four simple questions have the power to transform your practice. They will help you move beyond the cycle of frustration and inconsistency and into a state of steady, sustainable progress. Mastery is not about grinding through endless hours of practice. It is about practicing intelligently, efficiently, and with full engagement. And when you embrace the 4 S's, you will find that learning no longer feels like an uphill battle, but a natural, rewarding journey. Chapter 8: The Relationship Between Effort and Enjoyment. One of the most deeply ingrained beliefs in our culture is the idea that hard work and struggle are necessary ingredients for success. From a young age, we are told that effort is everything, that the more intensely we push ourselves, the better we will become. We hear motivational phrases like, no pain, no gain, or work harder than everyone else, and we internalize the idea that progress is something we must wrestle out of ourselves, as if mastery is a mountain that can only be climbed through sheer force of will. But what if this belief is not just flawed, but counterproductive? What if the very effort we associate with progress is, in some cases, the thing that holds us back? If you observe anyone who is truly great at what they do, whether it's an athlete, a musician, a writer, or a craftsman, you will notice something striking. They do not appear to be straining. Their movements are fluid, their actions feel natural, and their work seems almost effortless. A master pianist does not slam the keys with tension. They glide over them with grace. A world-class surfer does not fight against the wave. They ride it with intuitive ease. A skilled public speaker does not force their words out with strain. They deliver them with relaxed confidence. There is a paradox at play here. The highest levels of performance do not come from excessive effort, but from effortless effort. This is not to say that hard work has no value. In the early stages of learning, effort is essential. You must push through unfamiliarity, develop discipline, and commit yourself to practice. But as you progress, a shift must occur. You must transition from forcing improvement to allowing improvement to happen. When effort is applied with too much intensity, it creates tension. And tension, whether mental or physical, is the enemy of skill development. It prevents fluidity, introduces unnecessary stress, and disrupts the natural rhythm of learning. The key to sustainable progress is learning to balance effort with enjoyment. If practice feels like a struggle, you will eventually burn out. But if practice feels rewarding, you will naturally return to it day after day with enthusiasm. Enjoyment does not mean laziness or lack of discipline. It means approaching your work in a way that is engaging, satisfying, and free of unnecessary struggle. The most effective learners do not practice because they have to. They practice because they genuinely enjoy the process of refining their craft. But how do you cultivate this state? How do you ensure that your effort is productive rather than excessive? The first step is to let go of the idea that struggle equals success. Many people unconsciously associate frustration with progress, believing that if they are not struggling, they must not be improving. But in reality, struggle is often a sign of inefficiency. If you are constantly frustrated in your practice, it means something is out of balance. Perhaps you are setting unrealistic expectations, practicing with too much tension, or focusing on too many things at once. True progress comes from focused, deliberate, and relaxed engagement. One of the best ways to achieve this is through intrinsic motivation. Many people practice out of a sense of obligation. They feel they should improve, they should work hard, they should push themselves. But motivation that comes from external pressure is fragile. It relies on willpower, which is limited, and it creates a sense of resistance. The most powerful form of motivation is intrinsic, the kind that comes from a genuine love for the process itself. When you focus on curiosity, discovery, and personal fulfillment, your practice transforms from a chore into an enjoyable pursuit. Consider the difference between a child playing the piano for fun and a student practicing out of obligation. The child who plays for fun experiments freely, explores sounds, and enjoys the act of creating music. The student who practices out of obligation may be mechanically running through scales, counting the minutes until they can stop. Even if the student practices longer, the child is likely to make more meaningful progress because their learning is driven by genuine engagement rather than forced effort. So how do you shift from forced effort to effortless improvement? The answer lies in 3 key principles: relaxation, trust, and presence. First, relaxation is essential for skill development. Whether you are playing an instrument, practicing a sport, or honing a craft, excessive tension is counterproductive. When you are tense, your body is stiff, your mind is rigid, and your movements are forced. Learning happens most effectively in a state of relaxed concentration. If you find yourself straining, take a step back and consciously relax. Breathe deeply, release unnecessary tension, and remind yourself that progress does not come from force, it comes from fluidity. Second, trust the process. Many people become impatient with their progress, constantly analyzing whether they are improving fast enough. This creates anxiety and disrupts the natural flow of learning. The best learners trust that consistent practice will lead to results, even if they cannot see immediate improvement. They do not constantly measure themselves against unrealistic expectations. They focus on the present moment, knowing that mastery is a gradual accumulation of small improvements. Finally, be present in your practice. One of the biggest obstacles to effortless learning is distraction. If your mind is elsewhere, thinking about the outcome, worrying about mistakes, or dwelling on frustration, you are not fully engaged in the task at hand. The most effective practice happens when you are fully immersed in what you are doing, without judgment or self-criticism. Instead of obsessing over whether you are improving fast enough, focus entirely on the sensory experience of practicing. Feel the movement, hear the sound, observe the details. This deep level of presence not only makes practice more enjoyable, but also dramatically accelerates learning. When you apply these principles, effort begins to feel different. It is no longer about grinding through frustration. It is about allowing growth to unfold naturally. You will notice that your practice sessions feel lighter, your progress feels smoother, and your motivation remains steady. You will realize that enjoyment is not a distraction from mastery. It is a fundamental part of it. Ultimately, the most successful learners are not the ones who force themselves to work the hardest, but the ones who have learned to work with joy, curiosity, and presence. When you let go of excessive struggle, you unlock the ability to improve faster, sustain motivation, and enjoy the journey of mastery for a lifetime. Chapter 9. Developing self-discipline without stress. Self-discipline is often misunderstood. For many, the very mention of the word conjures images of rigid routines, endless self-denial, and an almost militant approach to practice. People associate discipline with force, struggle, and deprivation, believing that in order to achieve mastery, they must battle against themselves daily, overriding their natural inclinations with sheer willpower. But this view is deeply flawed. True self-discipline is not about punishment or restriction. It is about freedom. It is about creating a structure that allows you to grow effortlessly without relying on exhausting bursts of motivation or willpower. Consider this. If self-discipline were truly about force, then only the strongest-willed individuals would ever master anything. But that is not the case. The most disciplined people, whether in music, sports, business, or personal development, are not constantly fighting with themselves. They do not wake up every day dreading their practice. Instead, they have integrated discipline into their identity and their environment in a way that feels natural. So, what is the difference between discipline that feels stressful and discipline that feels empowering? The key lies in habits, mindset, and environment. If you are constantly forcing yourself to stay disciplined, it means your system is flawed. It means you are relying too much on conscious effort, rather than setting up a process that makes discipline effortless. To understand this, consider how habits work. When you wake up in the morning, you do not struggle with the decision of whether to brush your teeth. You do it automatically without questioning it. This is because brushing your teeth is a habit, not a choice. Now imagine if you could approach skill development in the same way. If sitting down to practice, train, or work on your craft felt as automatic as brushing your teeth. This is the goal of true self-discipline, to remove the constant internal debate of, should I do this? And replace it with effortless action. The first step in achieving this is to remove the need for excessive willpower. Many people assume that discipline is about constantly pushing through resistance, but in reality, willpower is like a battery. It drains over time. The more decisions you have to make, the more depleted your willpower becomes. This is why people who rely solely on willpower often experience burnout. Instead of forcing yourself to be disciplined every day, create systems and routines that eliminate decision-making. If you are trying to develop a writing habit, set a fixed time every day when you will write, so it becomes a natural part of your schedule. If you are learning an instrument, keep it in a visible place where you are naturally inclined to pick it up. If you are trying to build a fitness habit, lay out your workout clothes the night before, so there is no decision to be made in the morning. Another critical aspect of stress-free discipline is mindset. Many people view self-discipline as a battle against themselves, an act of self-denial. But this approach creates resistance. Instead, shift your mindset from "I have to do this" to "I get to do this." Rather than seeing discipline as a burden, recognize that it is a privilege to dedicate yourself to mastery. Every time you practice, you are investing in your growth, shaping your skills, and refining your abilities. If you change your perspective from one of obligation to one of opportunity, discipline becomes something you embrace rather than something you endure. Equally important is the concept of microdiscipline. Many people make the mistake of believing that self-discipline requires massive effort. They think that in order to improve, they must commit to long, intense practice sessions every day. But this is unsustainable. Instead, focus on small, consistent actions. If you want to learn a language, you do not need to study for hours at a time. 10 focused minutes a day will compound over time. If you want to build strength, you do not need to spend 2 hours in the gym. Just a few well-executed exercises every day will lead to transformation. The key to sustainable discipline is small, manageable actions that you can maintain effortlessly. However, even with the best routines, motivation will naturally fluctuate. There will be days when you do not feel like practicing, when your energy is low, when distractions tempt you away from your goals. This is where environmental design becomes crucial. The most disciplined individuals do not rely solely on willpower. They design their surroundings to make discipline easy. If you want to read more, keep books within reach. If you want to practice guitar, leave it out in the open rather than in its case. If you want to reduce distractions, remove temptations, turn off notifications, clear your workspace, and create an environment that supports your focus. At the same time, avoid the trap of perfectionism. Many people believe that being disciplined means never missing a day, never slipping up, never failing. But perfectionism is an enemy of consistency. The reality is that setbacks are inevitable. You will miss a practice session. You will have off days. The key is not to let these moments derail you. Instead of thinking, "I missed a day, I've failed," adopt the mindset of "I missed a day, now I continue." The goal is progress, not perfection. One of the most powerful strategies for maintaining long-term discipline is habit stacking. This means linking your desired habit to an existing routine. For example, if you drink coffee every morning, use that time to read a page from a book. If you stretch after your workout, use that time to practice mindfulness. By attaching new habits to existing ones, you make them automatic rather than something you have to consciously force. Lastly, self-discipline should never be rigid. Many people assume that discipline means sticking to a routine no matter what, but true discipline is adaptable. Life is unpredictable. There will be days when your routine is disrupted. On those days, instead of abandoning your practice completely, adjust. If you do not have time for your full workout, do a 5-minute version. If you cannot practice for an hour, practice for 10 minutes. The goal is consistency over intensity. A flexible, adaptable approach ensures that discipline remains a sustainable part of your life, rather than a source of stress. Ultimately, self-discipline is not about suffering. It is about creating a system that makes growth inevitable. It is about removing unnecessary resistance, designing an environment that supports you, and approaching practice in a way that feels rewarding rather than restrictive. When discipline is approached correctly, it does not feel like a burden. It feels like a natural, empowering part of life. By embracing these principles, you will find that discipline no longer feels like something you have to force. Instead, it becomes something that flows naturally, something that supports your growth without stress or struggle. You will realize that self-discipline is not about punishing yourself. It is about setting yourself free to pursue mastery with ease, consistency, and joy. Chapter 10. The Art of Practicing with Purpose. In the pursuit of mastery, few concepts are as misunderstood as practice. Most people believe that improvement is simply a matter of repetition, that the more they perform a skill, the better they will become. This assumption is not entirely wrong, but it is dangerously incomplete. Mindless repetition does not lead to mastery. Purposeful practice does. The difference between someone who stagnates and someone who grows rapidly is not the number of hours they practice, but how they use those hours. The truth is, not all practice is created equal. Many people spend hours practicing without making meaningful progress because they are merely going through the motions. They repeat the same mistakes, reinforce poor habits, and assume that sheer time and effort will eventually lead to improvement. But this is not how mastery works. The most effective practitioners, whether musicians, athletes, or entrepreneurs, do not simply practice more, they practice better. They engage in what is known as deliberate practice, a focused, structured approach that turns every session into a step forward. So, what separates deliberate practice from ordinary practice? The first and most crucial distinction is intentionality. When you sit down to practice, do you have a clear goal in mind? Or are you simply going through the motions? Purposeful practice is not passive. It is highly engaged and conscious. If you are learning an instrument, this means analyzing your weaknesses and deliberately working on them, rather than mindlessly playing what you already know. If you are training for a sport, it means breaking down each movement and refining it with precision, rather than repeating it sloppily. If you are working on public speaking, it means actively improving your tone, pacing, and delivery, rather than simply reciting words. One of the most effective ways to make practice purposeful is breaking down complex skills into smaller, manageable parts. Many people make the mistake of trying to master everything at once, but this approach leads to frustration and slow progress. Instead, focus on isolating specific elements of your skill and improving them individually. A musician might focus on perfecting a single phrase before attempting the entire piece. A basketball player might work on just their footwork before practicing full-court plays. A writer might concentrate on refining sentence structure before tackling an entire book. By narrowing your focus, you accelerate improvement in each area, which then compounds into overall growth. Equally important is concentration and deep focus. Purposeful practice requires full engagement. This means eliminating distractions and immersing yourself completely in the process. If your mind is wandering while you practice, you are not truly improving. You are reinforcing bad habits. Studies have shown that deep, uninterrupted focus leads to far greater learning than scattered, distracted practice. To cultivate this level of engagement, treat practice as a sacred, undisturbed time. Turn off notifications, find a quiet space, and commit fully to the task at hand. Even short periods of deeply focused practice are far more effective than hours of half-hearted effort. A critical, yet often overlooked aspect of deliberate practice is receiving and analyzing feedback. Many people avoid feedback because it exposes their weaknesses, but this is precisely why it is essential. Without feedback, you may not even realize you are practicing incorrectly. The best practitioners seek feedback constantly, whether from coaches, teachers, peers, or self-assessment. If you are practicing alone, Record yourself and review your performance with a critical eye. Ask yourself, where did I make mistakes? What felt unnatural? What needs improvement? By actively identifying and addressing weaknesses, you ensure that every practice session moves you forward rather than reinforcing bad habits. Another fundamental principle of purposeful practice is slow, deliberate execution. Many people rush through their practice, thinking that speed equals progress. But this is a mistake. If you practice something too quickly, you are more likely to make errors and ingrain incorrect habits. Instead, slow down. Focus on precision and accuracy before increasing speed. A musician practicing a difficult passage should first play it at half speed with perfect control. A martial artist learning a new move should execute it slowly with proper form before applying full power. A speaker rehearsing a speech should articulate every word carefully before aiming for fluidity. Slowing down allows your brain to encode the correct patterns, making them second nature over time. Equally important is tracking progress. Purposeful practice is not about mindless repetition. It is about improvement. This means keeping a record of what you are working on and how you are progressing. Whether through journaling, video recordings, or measurable benchmarks, tracking your progress keeps you accountable and allows you to see tangible improvements. If you are learning to draw, save your sketches so you can compare them over time. If you are developing a fitness skill, log your repetitions and times to track gains. If you are working on writing, review past drafts to observe your growth. Progress tracking not only provides motivation, but also helps you adjust your practice strategies when necessary. One of the most underestimated aspects of effective practice is mental rehearsal. Many people assume that improvement only happens when they are physically engaged in practice. But studies have shown that visualizing a skill can be almost as effective as physically performing it. This is because mental practice activates the same neural pathways as actual practice. Athletes use visualization to perfect their movements before stepping onto the field. Musicians mentally rehearse performances before playing a note. Public speakers visualize their speeches to refine their delivery. The key is to make mental rehearsal as vivid as possible. Imagine every detail, every movement, every sensation, as if you were actually doing it. Lastly, purposeful practice requires patience and self-compassion. Many people get discouraged when they do not see immediate results. But mastery is not a straight line. It is a series of incremental improvements. Expect plateaus, setbacks, and moments of frustration. These are not signs of failure. They are part of the learning process. Instead of getting discouraged, embrace them as opportunities to refine your approach. The most successful individuals understand that progress is often invisible in the short term, but unmistakable over time. By practicing with purpose, you transform every session into a powerful step forward. You move beyond mindless repetition and engage in a process that is active, intentional, and results-driven. Over time, this approach not only accelerates improvement, but also deepens your connection to the craft itself. Purposeful practice is not just about getting better. It is about developing a profound understanding and appreciation for the process of growth itself. When you shift from repetitive practice to deliberate mindful practice, you no longer waste time reinforcing bad habits or stagnating in mediocrity. Instead, every moment of practice brings you closer to mastery. The difference between those who struggle and those who succeed is not effort alone. It is the quality of that effort. By embracing the art of practicing with purpose, you unlock a path to mastery that is not only efficient, but deeply fulfilling. Chapter 11. Overcoming Fear and Anxiety in Skill Development. Fear and anxiety are two of the most significant barriers to mastery. They can paralyze us, make us second-guess ourselves, and ultimately prevent us from progressing in any skill. While talent, effort, and practice play essential roles in development, the ability to navigate and overcome fear is often the defining factor that separates those who succeed from those who give up. fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of imperfection. These emotions do not discriminate. They affect beginners and experts alike, appearing at every level of the learning journey. However, the key difference between those who progress and those who remain stagnant is not the absence of fear, but the way they respond to it. One of the most powerful realizations in overcoming fear is understanding that failure is not the enemy. Fear of failure is. Many people hesitate to attempt difficult tasks because they are afraid of making mistakes, looking foolish, or falling short of expectations. This is especially true in skill development, where improvement is often slow and imperfect. But what if we changed the way we viewed failure? Instead of seeing it as something to be avoided, what if we embraced it as an essential part of the process? Every mistake is a lesson in disguise. The most successful individuals in any field have failed more times than the average person has even attempted. They do not see failure as a verdict on their abilities, but as valuable data, feedback that tells them what needs adjustment, refinement, and improvement. Take any great athlete, musician, or entrepreneur, and you will find someone who has faced significant failure. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, was cut from his high school team. Instead of letting that failure define him, he used it as fuel for improvement. Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb, famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." In the arts, even the most celebrated musicians and actors have experienced rejection, poor performances, and setbacks. But what they all share is a mindset that transforms failure from an obstacle into a stepping stone. However, knowing that failure is valuable and actually embracing it are two different things. The human brain is wired to avoid pain, and failure, especially public failure, can feel incredibly uncomfortable. This is where reframing techniques become crucial. Instead of saying, "I failed, so I must not be good at this," shift the narrative to, "I failed, so now I have a better understanding of what to improve." Instead of thinking, "I made a mistake, which means I'm not talented enough," reframe it to, "I made a mistake, which means I'm learning and growing." This subtle shift in language has a profound effect on how we process setbacks. Another significant source of fear and anxiety in skill development is comparison. With the rise of social media and constant exposure to others' highlights, it is easy to feel inadequate. We see people excelling in their crafts and assume they were born with a gift, forgetting the years of practice and struggles that went unseen. The problem with comparison is that it distorts our perception of progress. When we compare ourselves to those ahead of us, we often feel discouraged, as if our progress is too slow or insignificant. But the truth is, the only comparison that matters is the one between who you were yesterday and who you are today. Instead of looking at someone else's mastery and feeling inadequate, use it as inspiration. Observe what they do well, analyze their approach, and see what lessons you can apply to your own journey. But do not let their success make you feel like your path is inferior or slow. Mastery is not a race. It is a deeply personal journey. Some people advance quickly, others take a longer path, but the speed does not matter. What matters is that you keep going. One of the most effective ways to overcome fear is to train your mind to stay present. Fear and anxiety are almost always tied to thoughts about the future. What if I mess up? What if I'm not good enough? What if people judge me? These questions create mental noise that distracts us from the present moment. When we are truly immersed in practice, fear disappears because our focus is no longer on the possible consequences, but on the task itself. This is why mindfulness and meditation have become powerful tools for athletes, performers, and professionals. When you train your mind to stay present, you strip fear of its power. A practical way to apply this is to focus entirely on the process, not the outcome. If you are practicing an instrument, do not worry about playing perfectly. Just focus on the feel of the keys or strings under your fingers. If you are giving a presentation, do not worry about how the audience will react. Just focus on your breathing and delivery in the moment. If you are competing in a sport, do not stress over winning or losing. Just be fully engaged in each movement. The more present you become, the less room there is for fear to take hold. Visualization is another powerful technique for overcoming anxiety. Many people experience performance anxiety before tests, presentations, competitions, or any high-pressure situations. Their minds race with worst-case scenarios, increasing their stress levels. But what if, instead of visualizing failure, you visualized success? Studies have shown that mental rehearsal, vividly imagining yourself performing a skill flawlessly, can significantly improve actual performance. This is because the brain does not distinguish between real and imagined experiences. It strengthens neural pathways based on what you focus on. If you repeatedly visualize yourself succeeding, your brain becomes conditioned to expect success rather than fear failure. It is also important to desensitize yourself to fear by taking small, controlled risks. If public speaking terrifies you, start by speaking in front of a mirror, then to a small group of friends, then gradually to larger audiences. If performing music in public makes you anxious, play in front of a close friend first, then in a casual setting, before progressing to formal performances. The key is to expand your comfort zone gradually, rather than all at once. Lastly, remember that perfection is an illusion. Many people struggle with fear and anxiety because they set unrealistic expectations for themselves. They believe that anything less than flawless execution is a failure. But perfection is not only impossible, it is unnecessary. The best artists, athletes, and professionals make mistakes all the time, but they do not let those mistakes define them. Instead, they learn, adapt, and continue forward. The road to mastery is not a straight path. It is filled with moments of doubt, setbacks, and struggles. But every challenge you face, every mistake you make, and every fear you overcome is a step forward. Fear does not mean you are failing. It means you are pushing beyond your comfort zone. And the more you push through fear, the less power it has over you. By learning to reframe failure, eliminate unhealthy comparisons, stay present, use visualization, and gradually expand your comfort zone, you develop the resilience needed to continue improving despite challenges. Fear and anxiety will always exist, but they do not have to control your journey. The true key to mastery is not eliminating fear, but learning to move forward in spite of it. Chapter 12. Applying the practicing mind to everyday life. Mastery is often associated with skill-based endeavors, playing an instrument, excelling in a sport, or developing expertise in a profession. However, the principles of the practicing mind extend far beyond technical skills. Every aspect of our lives, our relationships, careers, health, and personal growth, benefits from the same mindset that fuels mastery in any discipline. The ability to be patient, present, and process-oriented does not just make us better at playing the piano or perfecting a golf swing. It fundamentally changes the way we experience life itself. One of the most overlooked applications of the practicing mind is in our daily interactions with others. Relationships, whether romantic, familial, or professional, require patience, attentiveness, and a commitment to continuous improvement. Often, people approach relationships with the same outcome-focused mindset that hinders skill development. They want immediate connection, instant understanding, and rapid problem resolution. However, just as mastery in a skill requires incremental progress, so does building strong, meaningful relationships. A practicing mind in relationships means listening fully without mentally preparing a response, valuing small improvements rather than expecting instant perfection, and embracing the journey of growing alongside another person. Consider how often frustration arises in our personal relationships. simply because we expect things to be easier than they actually are. We get irritated when a loved one does not understand our point of view immediately, when a disagreement persists longer than we'd like, or when personal growth in a partner does not happen as quickly as we expect. This impatience creates unnecessary tension. But if we apply the practicing mind, we recognize that just as we do not master a new instrument overnight, we do not perfect communication, empathy, or understanding in an instant. We learn, we adjust, we practice. The same principle applies in professional settings. Many people enter a job with high expectations for rapid advancement, immediate recognition, and seamless productivity. When reality does not align with these expectations, frustration and burnout quickly follow. But the practicing mind teaches us to detach from the obsession with quick results and instead focus on refining our craft day by day. Instead of seeing work as a constant race toward a promotion or a raise, we can see it as an ongoing process of learning and contribution. This shift in mindset not only reduces stress, but also enhances our ability to perform with excellence. A surgeon who focuses solely on completing a procedure misses the nuances that make each surgery a unique learning opportunity. A writer who rushes to publish a book without savoring the process of writing loses the joy that comes from crafting each sentence with care. This same shift in focus can transform the way we approach our health and well-being. The fitness industry is built on quick-fix solutions, rapid weight loss programs, instant muscle-building techniques, and short-term detoxes that promise immediate results. Yet, anyone who has successfully sustained a healthy lifestyle understands that lasting change comes from consistent, incremental effort, not overnight transformations. A practicing mind in health means embracing the process of improvement rather than obsessing over the outcome. Instead of getting discouraged because we have not yet reached a fitness goal, we focus on the daily practice of movement, nourishment, and self-care. Instead of feeling defeated because meditation has not instantly quieted our mind, we value the act of sitting in stillness and developing the habit over time. One of the greatest challenges in applying the practicing mind to everyday life is navigating high-pressure situations. It is easy to be patient when everything is going smoothly. But what about when deadlines are looming, conflicts arise, or we are forced to make difficult decisions? In these moments, many people abandon the process-oriented mindset and revert to panic-driven thinking, fixating solely on immediate results. However, this is precisely when a practicing mind is most valuable. The ability to remain present under pressure, to focus on what can be controlled in the moment, rather than catastrophizing about the future, is a skill that separates those who thrive in stressful situations from those who crumble under them. Imagine a world-class athlete preparing for the final seconds of a championship game. If they allow themselves to become consumed by the pressure of winning or losing, their performance will suffer. However, if they stay anchored in the present moment, focusing only on their next movement, their next breath, their next action, they increase their chances of executing at their highest level. The same applies to a professional delivering a high-stakes presentation, a doctor performing a complex surgery, or a student taking a critical exam. Staying present in the moment, rather than allowing fear of failure to cloud the mind, is the essence of the practicing mindset. The practicing mind is also a powerful antidote to the modern obsession with speed and efficiency. Society rewards those who produce quickly, respond instantly, and multitask relentlessly. Yet, paradoxically, this constant rush often leads to poorer results, lower quality work, and increased stress. By contrast, those who cultivate the practicing mind understand that slowing down is often the fastest way to mastery. A chef who rushes to prepare a dish will likely produce a meal that lacks depth of flavor. A musician who skips the fundamentals in an attempt to play advanced pieces quickly will struggle with execution. A business leader who rushes decisions without thoughtful consideration may achieve short-term results, but long-term instability. One of the most liberating aspects of adopting the practicing mind is that it frees us from the burden of perfectionism. Many people hesitate to start something new, whether it is learning a language, picking up a creative hobby, or making a career change, because they fear not being good at it. But when we embrace the process instead of fixating on immediate excellence, we give ourselves permission to experiment, to make mistakes, and to enjoy the learning itself. Instead of fearing imperfection, we begin to see it as a natural and necessary part of growth. As we move through life, the practicing mind becomes a guiding philosophy, not just a technique. It reminds us that no matter how skilled we become, we are always students. There is no final destination in mastery, no point at which we are finished learning, improving, or growing. The joy of life itself comes from engaging fully in the process of becoming, not from reaching some distant ideal of perfection. By applying the principles of the practicing mind to relationships, work, health, high-pressure situations, and personal development, we create a life that is richer, more fulfilling, and far less stressful. We learn to appreciate each step of the journey, rather than constantly fixating on an imagined future where everything will finally be perfect. This shift in perspective is one of the most powerful transformations we can experience as we prepare to enter the final chapter, which explores mastery as a lifelong journey. It is important to reflect on the core message of this book. The practicing mind is not something you cultivate for a short period and then discard. It is a way of thinking, a way of being, a way of approaching life itself. And once you embrace it, you will find that patience, focus, and fulfillment are no longer things you have to chase. They become a natural part of who you are. Chapter 13. Mastery is a lifelong journey. Mastery is often mistaken for an endpoint, a state of perfection where one has finally arrived. It is seen as a destination, a goal to be reached where all struggle disappears, and one is left only with effortless expertise and unshakable confidence. This illusion is what causes many people to feel frustrated when they encounter difficulties in their learning process. They believe that if they were truly skilled, if they were truly meant to excel in something, they would no longer struggle. But the truth is, struggle is not a sign of incompetence. It is the very foundation of mastery itself. Every great artist, musician, athlete, scientist, or thinker throughout history has understood this reality. Mastery is not a fixed state. It is an evolving process, an ongoing relationship with practice, growth, and self-discovery. Even those who are considered the best in the world at what they do continue to refine their craft, push their limits, and seek deeper understanding. A master violinist does not stop practicing because they have reached a certain level of expertise. They practice because the act of playing, of discovering new nuances in music, of refining their technique, is an endless and deeply rewarding journey. A master martial artist does not stop training once they have earned a black belt. Instead, they recognize that with each new level of proficiency comes a new level of challenge, a new depth of knowledge to uncover. This is where many people go wrong in their approach to learning and improvement. They seek shortcuts, quick results, and an easy path to success, believing that the ultimate goal is to reach a point where they no longer need to put in effort. But those who truly understand mastery know that the joy is in the effort itself, not in escaping it. They understand that every time they push beyond their comfort zone, every time they challenge themselves, every time they return to the fundamentals to deepen their understanding, they are engaging in the essence of mastery. One of the most freeing realizations a person can have is that there is no final destination, no perfect endpoint where growth ceases. The fear of failure, the frustration of slow progress, the impatience to arrive somewhere, all of these emotions are rooted in the mistaken belief that learning is about getting to a fixed point rather than about engaging fully with the process. But when we recognize that mastery is about the journey, not the destination, we release ourselves from the unnecessary pressure of perfectionism and allow ourselves to truly enjoy the act of learning. The practicing mind is not just a tool for skill development. It is a philosophy for life. Those who embrace it find that their perspective on challenges begins to shift. Instead of seeing difficulties as obstacles to overcome before finally reaching a place of ease, they see them as integral parts of the process, as stepping stones on the path of mastery. They no longer resent challenges. They welcome them as opportunities for growth. They no longer dread practice. They find fulfillment in it. They no longer measure success purely by external achievements. They measure it by the richness of their experience, the depth of their engagement, and the satisfaction that comes from steady, continuous progress. Imagine an experienced painter standing before a blank canvas. To an outside observer, this person is already a master, capable of creating stunning works of art with ease. But in the painter's mind, each new canvas is a new challenge, a new opportunity to explore color, texture, and composition in ways they have never done before. They do not approach the painting thinking, "I already know how to do this, so I should not struggle." Instead, they know that every brush stroke, every decision, every small adjustment is a moment of discovery. They are not just painting, they are practicing. And in that practice, they find fulfillment, curiosity, and growth. The same principle applies to any pursuit. A great writer does not see writing as something they have already mastered. They see it as an ongoing exploration of language, storytelling, and self-expression. A great scientist does not see their work as finished. They see every question answered as the opening of a new door to deeper understanding. A great teacher does not believe they have nothing left to learn. They see every student as a mirror reflecting new perspectives and challenges that refine their ability to educate. This understanding of mastery as an ongoing journey brings with it an incredible sense of peace and fulfillment. When we stop believing that we need to arrive somewhere in order to be satisfied, we allow ourselves to be satisfied in the present moment. We stop rushing through life in a constant state of frustration, always believing that happiness and fulfillment are waiting just beyond the next milestone. Instead, we recognize that happiness and fulfillment are available to us right now in the simple act of being fully engaged in what we are doing. This does not mean that we should abandon ambition or stop setting goals. Rather, it means that we should redefine what success means to us. Success is not just about reaching the top of a mountain. It is about the climb, the experience, the lessons learned along the way. When we stop seeing goals as finish lines and start seeing them as markers of progress, we remove the pressure of getting there and instead focus on the daily practice of improvement. In many ways, the greatest masters are those who remain students forever.